9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Already Not Yet.
You are listening to As It Is for People So Too It Is for Nations podcast.
What it take for you to listen to me? Babe, can't you see what's going on around me? What would you do if everything came crumbling down around you? And what would you see if the world broke and left you alone? Baby, don't go. Don't go that way. Baby, don't go. Don't go down that way. Baby, don't go. Don't go that way. Baby, don't go. Don't go that way. You've got more bubbles in this economy than a cheap champagne on New Year's Eve. How's your addiction working for you? I know there's going to be people that are going to stop following me or liking me or whatever on social media, on LinkedIn or in the circles I travel with, because I'm not stoic enough for them. Well, a snake's pretty stoic as well, until they feel threatened. What are you? You know why you're afraid of other people's anger? Because it shows you what you've hidden and buried in yourself. Quite frankly, I can't see how you can look around and not be angry at what this has turned into. So, while you're taking your Prozac and drinking your bottles of whiskey to try to bury your feelings, don't expect me to. You know, there's a lot of folks in churches that, you can't have any anger, Bible says you need to get rid of all wrath, all right. First off, don't quote scripture to me you don't understand. Number one. Number two, who do you think invented anger? There's a proper context for everything under the sun. Anger has its proper context. But it's only righteous indignation if it doesn't offend you, right? Don't be a hypocrite. It's funny. You tell people you don't like people, in the public to get angry about stuff, right? unless you can make a Jerry Springer version out of it. But yet you go to wars, don't you? What do you think a war is? No, you like bottling it up, don't you? So you can redirect it. But you don't like it when it's directed at you. You didn't when you were a child either, did you? You ever heard of this? Spare the rod, spoil the child. As it is for people, so too it is for nations. Now contemplate that for a little bit. Go ahead. Pour yourself a tumbler of some good small batch single malt whiskey and think it over. Maybe light yourself a good Cuban cigar. Look out the windows of your penthouses on your kingdoms of sand while you contemplate it. And you want to lecture me and you want to be offended at me when I'm angry at what you've done? Oh, of course so. Because it's all relative and it's all subjective to you, right? Everything revolves around you. Well, you're wrong. When you're doing something wrong and you're hiding it, or you think you're hiding it, what you fear most is anybody being angry around you. Because you know what you've done, and it rattles you. You want to create a fake placid world. But it actually increases the very things you fear the most by living in the delusion of your mirage. There's a cost, right? Isn't that what we learn in business? Everything has a cost, does it not? Well, if you invest in lies and your own self-deception, it has a cost. And what it pays out as a dividend is what you fear the most. Now, if you've noticed a change in my tone over the last year, you would be correct. I went from trying to get people to work together and offering solutions to watching what your best and brightest leaders in this country, many of them were not prepared for, were not humble enough to admit, and not capable enough to adapt in a crisis. And not mature enough intellectually, spiritually, and emotionally to take responsibility for it so that you could learn from it, or they could learn from it. That those who did grew and showed themselves to be amazing leaders. There will be a lot more of those rising as the rest of them fall. You don't need a fake stoic. You need blunt honesty about your predicament. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear. Now, if you don't like that, just hit stop and turn it off. This is not for you. There's nothing more that can be done for you. But for everybody else, there's a time for everything under the sun. A time to laugh, a time to cry, a time to celebrate, a time to mourn, a time to plant, and a time to reap. What time do you think it is? I think you know. It's autumn. Autumn is traditionally in agriculture in the northern hemisphere, in the northern latitudes, right here in America and in Europe. It's harvest time. You reap what you have sown in planting in the spring. So it is for the field of the world, in the same way of the fields of agriculture. And as it is for those things, so it is for people, in the same manner it is for nations. What time do you think it is? You invested in everybody in the world but your own country, and the right ones in your own country. Because when you invested the people's money in people at the lower levels, some of them needed the help, but what you really created was a dependent political class, right? That's really what you created. You created a slave class to money. Now, they don't actually do anything beyond that, right? But you created a nightmare where you have to keep feeding the beast that you created, because you didn't build them up and empower them to be something greater than what your own perceptions and arrogance led you to create in the first place. Now you're stuck. So you devoured the very people that were trying to do things. You put them down, you mitigate them, you mock them, you call them everything under the sun. And then when they get pissed, you call them everything under the sun again. But they're deplorables, irredeemables. Who the hell are you to judge? Right? Isn't that what you tell everybody else when they call you out on stuff? Right? Well, you're going to drink your own cup. And it's going to be a stiff drink. You know, I've lived in this my whole life. And what it's taught me is this. There is nothing that can be done to make this people happy. You like your misery because you like your pride, your avarice, your hubris, and you like playing the victim, just like Beijing likes to play the victim there. Just like Putin loves to play the victim in the Kremlin. Everybody's a victim. Oh, we're all victims. No, we're not. You victimized your own people, though. Just like they victimized theirs. What time is it again? Oh, that's right. It's harvest time. Better get the sickles out, huh? Better fire up the tractor and get the harvesters ready. Well, you know how to plant Throughout all human history, war and false peace. You're damn good at that. You're also damn good at blaming one another for the very things that you do, and crushing the people, and plundering the people, and devouring the people, and accusing the people, and destroying the people that aren't like you. You got that down too. And you wonder why the field of the world is filled with thorns and thistles. You don't learn because you choose not to learn. You're subjective in what you choose as valid based upon your own selfishness, your own arrogance, your own pride and fear. False evidence appearing real. And now you're at your crossroads. It's going to get crowded on those crossroads during a harvest. Yeah, I'm smoking a cigarette. Does that offend you? You can turn this off too. You're going to grow up, or you're not going to be counted among the table of nations. It'd be so much easier if I didn't love you and care about this country and the people in it and the people in other nations. For some damn reason, I'm not like that. Never have been. And your system has been very good throughout my life at telling me everything that was wrong with me and people like me. You've not been very good about telling us what's right with us. And now I know why. We are a threat to you. And now there's an army of people like me, and we're really a threat to you. Wait till the rest of the army arrives. That'll happen in the blink of an eye. So let's talk about market forces, shall we? We all know that's a bullshit term when your systems are run by algorithms. So let's talk about the real market forces behind it. When it was a baby, it was called the golden calf. Now it's the bronze bull, right? I'm not against prosperity. I'm against the worship of it. And what it causes people to do when they're addicts, when their greed becomes what it always becomes, a devourer. That's an addiction. The problem with greed is it always creates the conditions for the people that are the most greedy to destroy the very kingdoms that made them wealthy in the first place and ultimately force them to forfeit their own souls. That's a problem, isn't it, when you're a greedy person? When everything you've built your life upon is made out of temporary, only to have your temporary time snuffed out because of your own choices. But you don't lose, right? You can't lose it, right? You can't, you deny your death. You're in fear of your death, though. That's the reality. And you will lose it. You'll lose it all. How many times have you heard an amazing story about somebody, rags to riches, then they lose everything and they're back to rags, and they learn the lesson, and they warn people, don't let greed, don't let your wealth, your power, your influence, your fame, whatever, determine who you really are, because it will destroy you. It's a lie. You know, we like to put those people on talk shows, right? They're kind of like, the elite zoo. Wow, this species actually, overcame these things, right? Oh, do you not understand what a mirage you're in? Let me tell you a couple of things the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians, and a bunch of the others that hate you are good at. Because you controlled what it is they had access to, you actually forced them into the paradigm known as, the mother of necessity paradigm. You forced them to be creative, and in forcing them to be creative, you forced them into a means of having to use what they have while they know how to exploit yours. That's really unwise. It's your denial of your predicament that got you here. It's your arrogance that is worsening your predicament while you're in it. How's that working for you? How's it working for you not actually doing anything that inspires the public to come together? It's one of two things. One, you don't want them to come together. Two, you're not capable of bringing them together because you don't have the capabilities because you're compromised. You're working from one side of the paradigm or the other. You can't do it that way. In my lifetime, I've never heard some of the incredible men and women in this country that I respect discuss the possibility of this country completely falling apart and fracturing into pieces and no longer being the republic that it was supposed to be. Some of you probably don't want that. You want to see things get patched up. In fact, most of you. So what is it going to require of you to make a difference of being a part of changing the trajectory that we're on. Because you're at a crossroads as well. You know, one of the things I learned growing up is that God rarely does things the way that you think he should. In fact, he does things in a way that goes completely against the grain of what the conventional wisdom and traditions and ideas are of the society he deals with at any given point in time. Same thing holds true for people. But he has a plan. And all he asks is that you trust him, and he'll give you what you need to trust him. So Jesus said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? What do you think? If you really get honest with yourself and you stand in front of the mirror, what do you really trust in? Because I can see from here, from my position, there's a lot of folks that don't really trust in God that say they do, and a lot of folks that, deny that God even exists that are no different than you, that say that you trust in God when you really don't. Because your actions speak volumes. You couldn't build a library big enough to put all the books of those volumes. Reminds me of the ended book of John. All the things that Jesus did, if they were written down, the world could not hold all the books. You know what's interesting about that? Those are my Christian brothers and sisters, right? Isn't it written that Jesus is the author and finisher of your faith? What's he writing? A book. That's what authors write, books. And he always completes what he starts. You're a book. But you built a society that judges everything by the book cover. I see it in a lot of your religious communities. The seventh letter of the seventh church in the book of Revelation, they're wealthy, they have need of nothing. Means that with the wealth comes power and influence. Yet they do not see how poor, naked, and blind they are. Now, why do you suppose that is? Well, I can tell you one thing. It isn't because they trust in God, because they don't. But they do appear to have it down. They have the appearances. Well, so does the devil. If you didn't know anything about anything and you looked up at night and saw a full moon, you'd think the moon was a light bulb. But it has no light of its own. It's all appearances. Nothing is hidden, even at the crossroads. Instead of being grateful for what you had and what you have, you just want more. And that tells me you're not grateful for any of it. That tells me that you're trying to fill an infinite hole with temporary things. And that pursuit of happiness will not lead you to happiness, but it will lead you to the grave very unhappy. But you love your either-ors here in this world, don't you? Just like your election, an either-or. It's always the either-or. You pretend to be different than the other nations, but you're actually acting exactly like the nations that you say that you're different from. It's just you have the illusion of choices here. Do you not? You have entire industries built up around creating that illusion every election cycle. Do you not? And then everybody gets on and they're hyperbolic and they're pointing the fingers at everybody else and slinging mud. And they bullshit the public, and nothing ever changes. It's pretty clever. Till you get into a crisis where your survival's on the line. And everything's being exposed to everybody else that many already saw. And they're paying the consequences for you not seeing you and what you're doing and how transparent you are in your foolishness. You know, this morning I watched a video on Nancy Pelosi. She was really upset about stimulus. Helping everybody, right? She's good at that. She's a career politician. She's got it down. Nancy, I'm going to say this to you. If you really care about these people, why don't you sell everything that you have and pay for, put it into a trust so that you can actually put your money where your mouth always is. Remember the story of the rich young ruler? Since you want equality, then just make it non-gender specific and put your face in there. When you live up to what you say that you believe, maybe your words will hold something more than air. I could go down the list on the people, but I quite honestly hate politics. To me, politics is a facsimile of actual statesmanship and governance. All the people I grew up respecting and learning from and reading their stories and biographies, and they were imperfect people. God takes imperfect people and does great things with them. What we have here is a simulacrum. Smoke and mirrors. It's bullshit. It's not even a good script. Clearly, whoever is authoring that part of the story isn't God. That's generally what people write when they do it their own way and write their own stories. all those self-made people out there. As if they just spontaneously appeared because they made themselves. Nope, that's pride and that's delusion. No one ever has success solely upon their own efforts. They always have help along the way, and they always have people that make them a success. Doesn't mean that they don't play a role in it. That's not what I'm saying, like President Obama said, all right? Now, don't put me in that camp either. That's your crossfire, and that shit doesn't work anymore. I'll just turn it back on you. Most of the wealth in this country is through hard work. Right? That's what we're told. Most of it is family oriented. Most of it is through cronyism in this country now. Not all of it, by any means. But those of you who are in the portals and the networks within the government know how this whole gameplay functions, don't you? And who funds all that? Well, it's the American people. Oh, but you can't trust them with that all those potential opportunities, right? No. It's because it's an old boys and old girls network. Always has been. Right? And then you whitewash it over with things like, oh, it's a national security issue. No, it's a greed, avarice, and hubris issue. If it was a national security issue all the time you say it was, you'd have done a hell of a lot better the last 50 fucking years. Everybody's got an institute, a think tank, an NPO, an NGO, right? Nothing gets done. Why do you think that is? Oh, I think we all know, don't we? We just don't want to say it because it might hurt our opportunities to maybe get invited into the club, right? You know, we don't want to tarnish our reputations, no matter how fake or real they may be. That's hubris. That's the world that's fading away. You're at a crossroads. It's easy to talk about sacrifice when you're sacrificing other people's lives, opportunities, well-being, jobs. It's easy to write books on that shit. It's easy to go on your speaking tours. But you have to stick your head so far up your ass, I'm surprised it's not coming out your belly button, in denial of what your country has turned into under your watch. You're not going to be able to kick the can down the road on anything that has been left undone over the last 70 years. You will deal with it, or it will eat you alive and destroy you. Be it domestically or in your foreign policy. Be it on the civilian side or in the military. And everybody uses the same language sets like they were programmed in a freaking factory. Inclusion, inclusion, diversity, diversity. All right, come on. Fix the damn system and stop talking bullshit, or be stripped like a French cheap whore. Because the words mean nothing anymore. Your political correctness and all your, news speak holds no weight anymore, right? The far left wants equality of outcomes, right? Well, how are the outcomes of that? I can tell you what the outcomes of your current policies and your current ways of doing things are going to yield. Now, I saw this years ago. But you probably don't want to hear that because that will upset your bubbles. Everybody screams for leadership until they're not the one picked to be the leader. Everybody talks about change until they have to actually sacrifice something in their own lives to actually be a part of making that happen. It's those that actually their words and their deeds match, and they're not afraid of taking the risk, that actually do something in this world that has a lasting impact beyond the shadow on the ground. But that's too real, particularly for the America that we are now. It's amazing to me how many people are considered brilliant and incredibly, they're almost going to have godlike status because they're successful business people. Isn't it successful business people that actually created the conditions that we're in right now? And successful politicians? And successful intellects? Should I go on? When you're done breaking your damn arms, patting yourselves on the back, you need to wake up and look at what you've created. No one believes you anymore. The ones that you think do, most of them play along. They don't believe you either. I surely don't. Because I see your outcomes on things. Yep, that was another cigarette. It's a good one. The irony is I rarely get sick. I guess somebody holds the keys of death and grave other than your scientists. Hell, you can't even figure out how to deal with COVID. Or can you? Right? It's a good thing I'm not running for any kind of office, because I will have destroyed my polls on every single talk I do. Unless, of course, I just told everybody what they wanted to hear and was fake. I would rather have a small group of people that are real, that are honest, and that are mavericks, than all the nations on earth filled with a bunch of lemmings and fake people. Social media is a very interesting study because every time somebody does something, everybody else copies it. Now, we used to say that imitation and, copying was part of creative process, right? Imitation's a form of flattery. Not so much. Not all the time. Mostly, it's just laziness and a lack of creativity. And, that should be apparent now on social media. Another word you guys need to stop using is democracy. Stop lying to people about America being a democracy. We're not a democracy. We never have been a democracy. Although, a lot of people are trying to make it a democracy, and democracies end in tyranny. We're a representative democracy. We're a republic. And there's a good reason for that. At least we used to be before it became a facsimile of the real. Yep. Nothing like the mirage, though. Oh, we want it to be so real. But even the mirage is at the crossroads. Yep. What was that Johnny Cash song? Damn your eyes. I can't tell some days if it's a blessing or a curse to see through all this mess. I see the most beautiful things in people and the most heinous things in our society coexisting in the same fields. Yeah. I was at a crossroads many, many years ago, and I made my choice. And I knew that choice would come at a cost. I chose the narrow way, the way of pursuing truth and love, that I might hopefully be a man of justice and mercy and learn what humility is and the grace of God by learning to take responsibility for my own actions and being willing to learn from them and learn from that of others. I learn from everything. And if I told you just what I've been taught here in America, if I left it there, you probably wouldn't want to hear that. But I've also learned some great things too here in America, other than that it's a giant crucible. What I've learned is that people are worth fighting for and taking risk for and investing in. And that I have a vision for this country That involves everyone, and I don't have to use the word inclusive or diverse. I actually know what the words mean, and I know when they're used what their intents are. Some people mean them well because they don't understand the etymology of the words, particularly diversity, which actually has its roots back to Old French, which means to divert and divide. I prefer plurality, as in e pluribus unum. Now, if there's one thing that makes me question why I was born, is turning on any of the media or interacting with any of the political crap going on and then seeing how it affects everybody else in this country. You've made hell here. When people like me that love this country and love the people despise what you've become, you've got a problem. And it's not us. You are at your final crossroads. Better get that tumbler out and pour yourself another drink. Maybe 2 or 3. Because I think you're going to need it. Have a good night.
When the rain begins to fall upon your heart, I can only hope that it doesn't tear you apart. Oh, and I say these words to you, not because I don't care, but because I love you. But everything comes to an sometimes you gotta leave everything behind. Some days you gotta know when to let go of the lies. It seems that you've chosen so many things. I just wanted you to come home and be free. You know, the hardest things to do, my love, is to walk away, even when there's not enough I don't care, but because I love you. But everything comes to an end. Oh, and I say these words to you, not because I don't care, but because I love you. But everything comes to an end. You know that